Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions.
He goes, basic trainings in May, get your ass there.
Wow.
So
Yeah, buddy.
I'm like, all right, here we go. So
An opening.
that summer between my freshman year and my sophomore year of college, I went to basic training and did my tech school, and it happened to just fit right in summer break, so I didn't miss a beat with school. Came right back in, went to school, and started in the National Guard.
Perfect.
And doing college at the same time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you did that for how long?
So I was in the Guard for 6 years.
Okay.
So went through college, did all that, went in front of the pilot selection board my last 3 years, 3 years in a row. After kind of learning the ropes and what you had to do, like get letters of recommendation, it was kind of an unwritten rule, you need your private pilot's license, so I got that. At the time I was in the military, there was an overage of pilots. Like the military did not need pilots.
So you oversupply.
So they oversupply and they're extremely selective. And one of the guys I worked with in my shop, he was, I think, a year ahead of me in school when he went to the university also. His dad was an airline, like an international airline pilot. So he grew up around aviation his whole life and had his private license. He actually, that summer that I was in basic, he went to this program in the summer. It was in Sacramento, and it's a school, it's a pilot school, where it's kind of like a college setup. Like there's a dorm and everything.
Okay.
I think it costs like 90 or 100 grand.
Wow.
But they take you from, you had to get your instrument rating, your single engine instrument ratings.
Right.
So he had gotten
IFR?
that, IFR, yeah. So he'd gotten that, and that was like the entry requirement, and he went there. So in that time span, I think it was about 90 days or so of that curriculum, he went from single engine IFR to commercial multi-engine instructor.
Wow.
In that period of time. So now we fast forward to, and then, he's just racking up flight hours, we fast forward to the first pilot board, and he's one of the guys I'm competing with. I'm like, oh,
Wow.
kind of hands down, like he's gonna get it. But I knew that, so I wasn't disappointed. I'm like, this is just, experience in front of the board and how to interview and all that. So I'm fine with it, right?
Yeah.
And of course he got it. He got the pilot slot, and he was a shoo-in for it, right? I mean, he had almost as much experience as some of the rookie pilots there, right?
Yeah.
So he gets it, and so year 2, I go up in front of the board and just didn't get it. And I'm like, all right, well, no problem. So year 3, I'm coming in and I'm like, all right, well, I didn't have my license yet, my pilot's license on the second one. So this third one, I'm like, okay, maybe that's hanging me up. So I got it and went in front of the board. And interestingly enough, the pilots on that board, I think there was 5 pilots on the board. 1 or 2 of them were for alumni of my fraternity.
Oh, okay.
And so I had a little more connection there.
Yeah.
Another one was from kind of like a rival/friendly fraternity of ours, alumni. And so we all were kind of fraternity guys and would talk and stuff like that. And so like 4 out of the 5, I thought I had a pretty good opportunity with. And that year, I happened to have a fraternity brother at the Guard who was going up for the slot as well.
Gotcha.
And so I go in there and I get grilled in this interview. I mean, they let me have it big time. Why haven't you deployed to the Middle East and this and that? And they're just all over me. And I'm like, well, hey, like I volunteered to go to the Middle East. They just always needed the guy with the next level job skill set than I had.
Right.
So I was just going my anthrax vax, went through all the pre-deployment briefs. Like I'm ready. Like I got my bag by the door. Like I'm ready for the call. But just my number hasn't been chosen. And they're like, oh, your letters of recommendation are all 2 years old. I'm like, well, those people would still recommend me. Like
There's an expiration on those?
they're like, well, you should have current ones. I'm like, what the heck? So and then they were just all over me, right?
Wow.
So my fraternity brother comes back out. So we're exchanging notes afterwards. How did your go? How did mine go? And I told him about mine. I'm like, man, they railed me. I'm like, what was yours like? He's like, nothing like yours. I'm like, well, what'd you guys talk about? College and chicks and drinking beer and like it was nothing. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So,
what gives?
anyways, he got the slot, and so maybe it was predetermined. I don't know. Maybe I pissed somebody off along the way, which is entirely possible. So at the end of that, I'm going, shoot, what am I going to do? Because now it was the end of my second enlistment.
Yeah.
And I had told everyone there, I'm like, you put me in the cockpit, you have to throw me out of the military. Like, I'll never leave.
Yeah.
But I don't get in the cockpit. Like, I don't know how long I'm hanging around.
Eventually. Yeah.
So the base offered me an officer position, and I can't remember, it was like in the personnel department. So it's kind of like the corporate equivalent to like an HR person.
Gotcha.
And they're telling me what it entailed and this and that, and you'd be dealing with people having, family issues and this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, I don't have the temperament for that. Like, that ain't me. But I said, maybe going to OCS, getting officer rank and doing that kind of thing might help me again, because I can keep going from that board until I age out, right? So I'm like, maybe that would help. So at this point, I had already graduated college and I was in the mortgage business.
Okay.
And, my first experience kind of like having to be responsible for my own way of living and commission only and all that. So understanding that line of work, it's not like you show up, clock in, you get a paycheck, right? Like it's all 30, 60, 90 days away from being paid. And so they talked to me about it, and I said, okay, I'm guessing that these couple schools I had to go to, because in the military, they never line up perfectly. And so I'm like, I probably got to go to a school, come back for 5 or 6 weeks, go to a school, come back for 4 or 8 weeks, and then, kind of do that thing. Like, yeah, we probably, your first year, you're probably gonna be in and out of schools. I'm like, okay, can you guys just put me on full-time orders during that period till I'm done with all the training? And because in our section, in our squadron, we did that for people all the time. And the Guard is really flexible on things like that, right? Someone's going their full-time job, cuts their hours at work, or they get laid off or whatever, they can call the Guard and be like, hey, can you just help a brother out, put me on orders for a month or 3 weeks or something, right? And they were always accommodating.
Yeah.
They instantly shut me down on that. I'm like, what?
Wait a minute.
I'm like, we do it in our squadron all the time.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's not how the National Guard works. I'm like,
Something's changed.
Okay. So I said, well, look, the only way I can like financially do this, like I explained to him my job and everything else. Like, I just don't have the ability to come back for 4 weeks and then make money.
Right.
Like, it just doesn't work in my industry.
Right. It's
So
not a salary.
yeah, if I'm gone, I'm gone. They were like, sorry, nothing we can do. So that was the end of it for me. I didn't re-enlist after that, because I thought, okay, maybe that'll get me where I want to go, and it didn't. So that was the end of the military journey for me.
So enough doors got slammed, and
Finally, the last one closed. In hindsight, 2020 is always better, but now knowing more about the military and maneuvers I could have made, what I should have done before I decided not to re-enlist again is I should have just ran down to the active duty recruiters, to the Marine Corps, Navy, and Air Force, and said, hey, look, here's what I got: pilot's license, college degree, put me in the cockpit, I'm in.
right.
And ironically enough, a guy that was in my fraternity a couple of years ahead, he was about 3 years ahead of me. I didn't notice at the time because I wasn't real close with him. But after a few years and seeing Facebook and stuff and his posts, he was an F-18 pilot.
Okay.
And this was, I was already out of the Guard by now, and so I just messaged him like, dude, how'd you end up flying F-18s? He was like, well, one day walking home from campus at school, there was a recruiter desk there, and the guy came over and just grabbed me. And he was a big dude. Like, I don't know how he fit. Like, not like fat, but just a big man. I don't know how he even fit in a cockpit.
Yeah, because they're
you can't be like huge, right?
Right.
He's like linebacker size guy,
Wow.
And I'm like, okay. He's like, they just came and picked me out of the crowd, the Marine recruiters. And he's like, I was half joking with him. I said, well, you make me a pilot, I'll join. They said, okay, sign here. He's like, that was it. I told him I want to be a pilot. It was done.
No way.
I'm like, you son of
Oh, dude, after all that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So in hindsight, I should have just done that.
Yeah.
I probably would have been flying airplanes.
Yeah. Okay, so this begs the question, right? I have a million questions for you. But this begs the question: how did you end up in the mortgage business?
So it's a funny story. So
I knew it would be.
So in college, I worked all through college, right? So always had different jobs. I was actually always in a commission sales job, believe it or not. And
I believe it.
at the time, I was selling radio ads for local radio hip hop station.
Okay.
Well, and to kind of shed some light on why, after my freshman semester, and I was playing in the university's jazz band, one thing I realized with playing the trumpet is I need to play at least 10 hours a week, or my armature, your face muscles, are too out of shape. I couldn't hang.
Yeah.
And I was always used to being the best. And here I am at the college level, and I was having a hard time making it through practice. And I was struggling. And it was because I wasn't practicing outside of when I had to show up to school and play. Because in high school, I never practiced, and I was always awesome.
Right.
So I'm like, I'll do the same thing, which might have been okay if I was just playing more regularly, right? But I wasn't playing every single day of the week like I did in high school. So I was struggling to keep up just with my muscles. And then the other thing, the university wanted me to come on board as a full-time music student and with a scholarship. And I said, absolutely, as long as I don't have to wear that goofy uniform and be in the marching band, because I hated that in high school.
Right.
They're like, no, that's part of the
Yeah,
gig.
you got it.
And I'm like, not for this guy. Sorry, bye. So I didn't pursue music, and I'm like, what am I going to do with a music degree? Be a band teacher? Like, that's the last thing I wanted to do.
Right.
So I was like, okay, that's over with. Well, my freshman year in school, I was selling car stereos. So I worked for this car audio company in town. I was kind of like the go-to place. And so what does any young kid at the time do with their extra money? We bought music. So I would buy CDs like crazy. And I always justified it like, well, I need demo music, you know. So every time I got paid, I'd go down to Tower Music, which doesn't exist anymore. And
I remember Tower.
Yeah, and I'd buy CDs.
Yeah.
I had this huge collection of CDs, like all the cool popular stuff at the time. And so going through my fall semester, and I'm a pledge in the Sigma Nu fraternity. And so we had a big party coming up on a Friday night. And in this era, a fraternity party still had bands come play. You know, so the DJ thing hadn't really happened yet. It was just kind of getting going. And one of the band members was a member of our fraternity, and he was the lead singer, and he was like just sick as a dog. And there was no way he was going to be able to sing. And so they were like, you know, the band had to cancel. So now the party's coming up on Friday. They put a ton of promotion effort in. Like the party's happening whether we have a band or not.
Right.
And they're like, they need some entertainment. And they go, so has anybody here ever like DJ'd? You know, we're all sitting in the meeting. And one of my buddies who got me into the mortgage business, he raises his hand. He goes, I DJ'd a party once in high school, and I have like half a DJ set up. They're like, you're the DJ, cool.
Yeah, there you go.
And he's like,
you're it.
Oh crap. So we're talking afterwards, and I'm like, hey man, like I have a truckload of music. Like, if you need help, he's like, yes, I need help.
Yeah.
Because of course he was nervous. We're pledging the fraternity,
Sure,
and you're really on the spotlight now, right?
Of course, yeah.
So we DJ'd collectively that first party together, and literally we were using I took a CD player from my parents' house. He had one from his house. You know, we had one speaker. Like it was real elementary, and we DJ'd our first party together.
That's cool.
So we ended up throughout our college days doing more and more DJing together, sorority dances, and then a couple of the college bars, and you know we were kind of a duo, and we'd DJ together, and so
I bet that was fun.
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a great time. The best part of it was I was a college kid who never paid for drinks because I was the DJ, and we got quasi known, and so you know we on the nights we weren't DJing we could go somewhere and they didn't check our IDs because they knew who we were, and we'd get free drinks, and it was amazing. Like my buddies loved going out with me because we never paid for drinks.
Yeah,
it was fun.
That's cool.
Yeah. So fast forward, and now I'm selling radio ads in my second to last semester of school for the local hip hop station. And I was also doing some DJing for them and doing, you know, remotes and different things for them as a hip hop DJ. And my buddy had, through another fraternity brother, kind of fallen into the mortgage business. We had a fraternity brother who grew up in Vegas, and he left school. His mom got sick, so he moved back to Vegas to be with her and needed a job. So he got a job with a mortgage broker shop there. And this was like, I think he started like in 96, 97 or something. And he got his feet under him. He built a branch, so he had a team and stuff. And we're coming into like 6% rates, right? Which today we think like, oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, compared to today, yeah.
And they were doing all these VA Earl Streamline refis.
Okay.
And at the time, you could just call up the title company. They'd give you a list with names, phone numbers, emails, like every piece of info you wanted. Like now you can't get that. But and he had his team there, and they're just dialing for dollars, and they're just refining the heck out of people, doing great. And so he hits up my good buddy Arjun and he says, dude, we're making all this money. And they had stayed in touch. He's like, you want to do this? He's like, easy money. I'm a broke college kid. Sign me up.
Right.
At the time to get a mortgage license, you need to be 18 years old no felonies. I think the application fee was $35 or $50 or $60. I mean, that was it. You're licensed.
Yep.
Go sell loans.
Yep.
So he started doing it. And I started noticing he'd go to class and he'd be wearing a tie and a dress shirt. I'm like, dude, you realize we're at school. Like, why do you dress so nice? Oh, I gotta go meet with clients. I'm like, clients? I'm talking about clients. And so then he started telling me about it. I'm like, huh, that's interesting. So anyways, he starts getting busier and busier to the point where he's like, dude, I got more on my plate than I can actually handle. So he asked me and another good buddy of ours, like, do you guys want to do this with me? And we're like, sure, why not?
Yeah.
So quit selling radio ads because I didn't really enjoy that anyways. And we started doing this, and eventually we were doing it part-time. There ended up being, I think there was about 6 of us, all fraternity brothers. We rented a small little office space, and we would come into the office at 4 p.m, and we'd have our lead sheet, and we would just dial and take short form applications on VA Streamline refis. And it was from 4 to 8, Monday through Thursday. That's what we did. And then during the day, those guys would kind of do the paperwork and mail out the applications.
So real quick, let's go back just a bit. Okay, there may be people that are listening to this that are not in the mortgage business. So when you say Earl, you're talking about an interest rate reduction loan.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, and when you say Streamline is, well, why don't you explain what Streamline is? I just want to make sure that everybody's up to speed.
So the Streamline is kind of the slang term for the VA Earl. So
Right.
it's a refinance program specific to VA loans.
There's no appraisal.
No appraisal, no income documentation, no pest inspection, none of that stuff. It's literally like a credit pull, your mortgage statement, and you've made 6 payments on time.
And why would the VA or an FHA, or why would they encourage that?
Well, they're encouraging it because they want to prevent default, and they also
It makes it more affordable.
It makes it more affordable because it's only reducing the rate. Like, you can't take equity out of the home or anything like that. And so at the time we were doing it, most people had interest rates over 8%.
Yeah. So I was going to say this. I got into the business at 1992, right before real estate went off a cliff in San Diego County. But interest rates were 9.5%, and they had been 10 6 months prior. And so everybody was talking about, oh, they've dropped 0.5% to the rate in 6 months. We're going to have deflation. We're going to have all this, awful stuff happening. The world's coming to an end, yada, 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 right? So all these people that bought with 10%, 9.75, 9.5, all that, they all had to get refinanced, right? And so a lot of people, a lot of veterans and people that have FHA loans don't realize that there's anything like a Streamline refinance available.
Correct.
So when you were calling them, you're picking up the phone and calling them going, look, we're not going to charge you anything. We're not doing an appraisal. We're not doing all this. We're just going to replace the paper. We're just going to reduce your payment.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, really? Right. Because it sounds too good to be true, but it is true. And it's true because they're trying, like you said, they're trying to improve their portfolio position, VA and FHA, because they're on the hook for these loans if they default.
Correct.
So a lot of people don't realize that. So I just want to make sure we explain that. So,
yeah.
So okay. So you're doing these Streamlines. You guys are doing the short form applications. You're banging through stuff. And are you in school at this point, or are you out?
Yeah, still in school. So
Okay,
this is my last semester of school.
Gotcha. Okay, so this is your
spring
senior year.
semester. I'm graduating, and it was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all of us buddies, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we spent the last 4.5 years just partying and having fun with each other,
Yeah.
right? So now we're in a work environment, sort of, but it was competitive. We're all super competitive.
Sure.
So we get in there and be like, I bet you beers you can't make 100 calls tonight. Oh yeah, I bet you can't talk to 50 people. And so that's how it would go. And so
That's fun.
It was fun.
Oh,
and it grew from there. So then we all graduated, and I was still in the Guard, so I was still trying to pursue that, and I was still DJing, and I'd become bigger and bigger, well-known, nightclub DJ at that point in time. So I had a lot going on, and we got to the point now where we kind of had to graduate. And we were all done with school. I guess we're gonna do this full time, at least for now. We'll see how it goes.
Right.
And so we got a different office, and now we're there all day, like a regular job, and we're doing mortgages.
Right.
And for the longest time, it was still just the refi thing, but we had too much. I mean, our office was Animal House. It was like the movie Animal House in an office setting.
Right.
It was just, we were wild, throwing staplers, punching holes in walls, slamming doors. Like, the neighbors in the building hated us because we were out of control.
Yeah.
But we had a great time.
Yeah.
Really great. But that's how the mortgage thing started, and it wasn't ever designed to be the career that it has become.
Right.
It was just, hey, come do this, it's fun, and it was a bunch of us buddies all doing it together, and it was great.
Yeah, that's cool. So you get in the mortgage business, you're doing refis basically, then what happens?
Then refis start drying up.
Yeah.
And now we're going, how do you make money at the mortgage business? Oh, there's just purchases. That was a whole new world.
Right.
Oh, well, how do you get those?
Right.
You got to go meet with realtors. Well, my dad was a realtor.
Oh, there
so
you
I'm
go.
like, okay, but he had kind of got tired of the residential real estate. He was doing more commercial and agriculture stuff. He's really a cowboy at heart. So he was doing farms and ranches mostly, and business opportunities. So he wasn't really a source of business for me, but he knew other realtors. He get me introduced. Problem was, I'm 22, and I'm going to a real estate agent who's been doing real estate for 10, 15, 20 years. They're my dad's age.
Yeah.
I'm fresh out of college saying, hey, let me have a shot at your clients. And they're going, you're like my son's age. You know, like you're a kid.
Went behind the ears, right?
Yeah, you're a kid. Like it was hard.
Yeah.
That no one would give me a shot. You know, so it was tough to get business. And eventually we began to figure that out and figure out how to generate some business, and then the market took off. And then we hit the 04 through 06 craze where
it was nuts.
Say the word mortgage and you ended up with 10 applications on your desk. It was insane.
Yeah, we were all looking at each other going, I can't keep doing this. This can't keep happening. We were 20% appreciation year over year here, and it was just like this, something's got to give, and it did. It did. Yeah. So 2004, 2006, you're just mopping the floor with it, right? And then 2007, 2008 rolls around. We know what happened in 2008. The Great Recession did its thing, and pretty much the mortgage business went away in the form it was in before.
Right.
So what happens?
So I had kind of moved on from working with my fraternity brothers, and I got my first crack at being a branch manager right before the crash.
Okay.
So
is this here or in
Reno?
Okay.
So local mortgage bank.
Okay.
So I was a broker before, now I'm a mortgage bank. I'm the branch manager. I inherited a small team, and of course it was my job to grow it and build it.
Sure.
And so got things cooking, and I wasn't there more than 9 months or so, and a bunch of dudes in suits roll up one day and say, pack your stuff, get out, leave the computer. I'm like, what? And it was like 5 or 6 guys. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, and they stood there and watched you do it.
Watch you pack your stuff, and I'm like, what happened? Well, the owner of the company had been cooking the books and got caught. And I mean, at the time I didn't know, right? I'm just trying to do my job. And so, yeah, that was the end of that job.
So those were investigators?
They were investigators.
Oh, wow.
And so they shut it down. I just bought my first house. I had a car allowance. So I just bought the most expensive car I could afford with that car allowance, right? And here I am going, holy crap, what in the world?
And you're on the hook for this car allowance, this lease or payment or whatever it is, right?
That Cadillac Escalade was now my responsibility.
Every mortgage banker had a Cadillac Escalade. Come on,
true,
man.
It was required.
Just like the suit and the tie. Come on, man.
So I was kind of in a panic. So I called up my good friend Arjun, who had was still in the business, and there was a big condo conversion happening. So the biggest hotel casino in Reno was the Reno Hilton.
Okay.
And some investors had bought it from the Hiltons and were converting it, doing this huge, massive project. And he was one of the preferred lenders on it. And so I had reached out to him like, I don't know what the heck I'm gonna do, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, dude, these guys, they need a new business manager. They just fired the person they had. It was a complete shit show. Like the person didn't know what they were doing. He's like, you would be perfect for that job. He's like, I can get you a conversation with who you need to talk to. I'm like, shoot, okay. So he introduced me to a guy, and boom, there I was.
Yeah.
So it was a really cool project. They were converting the Hilton, which is a 2,000 room hotel casino. Sits on 360 acres, right on the intersection of 2 major freeways, close to the airport. Like, I mean, location, right?
Yeah.
And so the guys that bought it, the overall plan was obviously a big facelift and remodel, but on top of that, they're going to build the nation's largest indoor water park.
Oh.
And one of the board members
on site.
On site.
Okay.
And one of the board members, that's what he has an engineering firm, and that's what they do.
Oh.
So he had built some of the ones in the Midwest, and so they had it all figured out. The water park build out was $100 million. in 2 phases, 50 million at a time, and the first 50 million would be operational while you built the other piece. And so they couldn't get a gaming license though. They had to outsource the gaming license, which ended up really hurting us in the long run. But their main flow of funds was from these hotel conversions. So they took half of the rooms, so 1,000 of them, and converted them to condo hotels.
Okay.
It was, a new-ish concept then. But that's where all the money was going to come from to pay the debt that we had that they got from a hedge fund to buy the place and to build out everything. And so I was in charge of kind of overseeing the whole real estate operation.
Gotcha.
And it was probably one of my favorite jobs.
Yeah.
It was really, really fun. And learned a lot of cool stuff, but the market started to turn not too long after that. And condo hotel financing is kind of fringy mortgage financing because you're really financing airspace is what you're financing. It's hard to understand. And the concept is you share in revenue with the hotel. So the hotel still rents out your place as a hotel room. So you don't get to keep like your things there.
Right. They keep it up. They
keep it up. They rent it. And you have a rental revenue share with the hotel and stuff. And there's an HOA fee. And but the rooms were remodeled. They were super awesome. And it was really cool. Well, as the market was starting to crumble little by little, financing, it didn't hit like a rock when the market crashed. It just slowly things started to go away. And one of the things that went away or started to phase out or get harder to get approved were these condo hotel loans.
Right.
All of a sudden there was more conditions and more conditions and lower loan to values, requiring more down payment. They were just getting harder and harder to get through. And then all of a sudden, like, lenders started disappearing. We had at that time 3 preferred lenders on the project. There's been 1,000 units to sell, and their sources started drying up. And then we were down to like 1, and then we're down to just cash buyers only. And it got real scary. And so what we ended up going into receivership. But the story behind that is, as this was starting to dry up, the fun part is we would always go on the road to sell these. So we marketed a lot in the Bay Area. So we'd go for like a weekend, and it was great because everything was comped, and we're staying at the Four Seasons, and it was very luxurious sales effort.
Yeah.
But then we were selling these things like hotcakes, right? And they were really selling. And when the financing started to dry up, we were still having some success on the cash sales. And we got to a point where, because we didn't have revenue from the casino, they struck a really terrible deal with the casino operator. So we had no revenue from the casino, which in a hotel casino, that's where all the revenue is. Like the hotel room sales, they don't generate much for profit.
They almost break even.
Sometimes, if you're lucky, they break even.
Right.
So that's not a profit center really. So, and the restaurants and stuff, you make a little money, but we were changing all those. We had Charlie Palmer Steakhouse come in and all these celebrity chef things, and I know there just wasn't revenue from that stuff. So the only revenue we had are from these condo sales, and all of a sudden that's coming to a screeching halt, and we start getting behind on our note payment. So at this time, the hedge fund, if you wanted to Google this, it's interesting reading, but Amaranth was the name of the hedge fund. And the guy who led that hedge fund made a lot of bad deals and cost that company to close. I think he killed himself, that hedge fund manager. But Chase, JP Morgan Chase, ended up buying our loan in a distressed sale from the hedge fund. So they picked it up for pennies on the dollar, and they immediately implemented some folks to come in and help figure out what's going on here.
Right.
And
trying to save the deal.
Trying to save the deal. And so at this point, the real estate sales were done. There was no financing. We weren't getting cash buyers anymore. And I didn't have a hotel pedigree. I didn't have experience working in hotels. So there really wasn't like a job for me anymore when the real estate stuff dried up. But my job required me to work with our general counsel, all our C-level suite guys. They all really liked me, and I worked with them. There'd be some nights where I'm working until like 12:30 at night with the CFO, just right next to him, and we're banging out stuff. Wow. So I was really tight with all the upper echelon guys, and they're like, hey, look, this receivership group's coming in here, and we don't necessarily have a role for you, but we're going to create a role, and you're going to work with them.
Oh, that's cool.
And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And like, basically, this is going to be a temporary thing. Once you learn your job responsibilities and get good at it, you'll literally be done with your job in like 8 hours a week. They're like, but we want you to spend the rest of the time job hunting because this is going to be a temporary deal.
Yeah.
But we like you, and, you know, we want to make sure that you're okay.
Sure.
I was like, wow, that's pretty admirable, right?
Yeah.
So they brought me into the accounting department and made me a director of accounts payable and accounts receivable. So I learned accounting real quick. I mean, I'd taken it in college, I didn't understand it to that degree, but you know.
Baptism by fire now.
Yeah. So, and then it was cool because I got to work with the Chase guys, the receivership team, and understanding that. And
they know their stuff.
Man, those are some sharp people, and they were cool. Like, they weren't in there trying to, like, you know, be the hatchet man. I mean, even though eventually that did happen, but it was pretty cool. And so through all that, I ended up getting a job through a connection, and I got a gubernatorial appointment to be the deputy administrator for the Nevada real estate division.
There you go.
So I was the number 2 guy in charge of the Nevada real estate division.
Wow.
So I moved on from that, and I was like, cool, well, I'm done with the mortgage business. Like, I had that job, now I'm gonna do this, like, mortgages are done.
Right.
And at the time, I had kept copies of all my files through all those years.
Yeah.
And I literally had one whole wall in my garage with boxes from floor to ceiling with all of them. When I worked at the when I worked at the hotel, I was like, I'm done with mortgages. And we had a contract with the big shredding company, so I loaded them up in my Escalade, took all those boxes down, shredded them all, didn't have a lick of past client info after that. Big mistake.
Right.
So I go to work at the state, and you know, I'm the number 2 guy. My boss is basically at conferences all the time. So I'm in charge. So I'm this young guy in charge of section managers who've been working for the state for, you know, 15 years, 20 years, right? They'd all been there forever. Yeah. And it's interesting, government and employment is much, much different than the civilian employment. And
much different.
Wow. Getting people to do their job is not an easy task.
Yeah.
Not easy at all.
Because they're there to perpetuate their own existence.
That's
just
it.
so we're clear.
That's it. and really the only way
not get the job done.
The easiest way to lose your job in the state is just being tardy.
Right.
So it was interesting driving from Reno down to the capital, Carson. During that commute hour, when all the state employees had to go there, it was like a Daytona 500 race. Like, you could tell who the state employees were because they were dodging in and out of traffic, cutting people off.
They were driving like they were on commission.
Yeah, 100%. Just to get to work on time, because they knew that was the one way they get fired. Once they got to work, they didn't do diddly.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.